rest. Thank you, Shay. Today we'll be talking on the importance of rest, especially as climate change makers and activists. I will start with introducing myself. So my name is Ayomide Olude, and I am the project manager at the Eco Anxiety in Africa project. And at TEAP, we work on the intersection of climate change and mental health, and validating these emotions for Africans, by Africans and for Africans, that's our tagline. So we work on these intersections of climate change and mental health for people of African origin wherever they are in the world. And we do this by space making and by research. If you've been following us, you know that we host monthly webinars where we discuss various topics that intersect this space and their importance to us. Today we'll be speaking on reflections on rest and rejuvenation, and why this topic came about. We remember earlier this month, June 5th, was World Environment Day, and usually for World Environment Day we have events, cleanups, call them street cleanups, to celebrate World Environment Day and the importance of the environment to us. Last year we had multiple cleanups in 7 states in Nigeria, and it was a whole feast to pull off. So this year, we've been working constantly for the first half of the year, and we've seen that it is very important to put in rest in our work. Even nature supports rest, basically. So that is our focus for this webinar, instead of us going out, which is also important, having physical events. We also realize that this impacts on our mental health. We need to discuss it. How does this impact our mental health, and our reflections on this topic, basically. So before we go ahead into the conversation proper, we have an icebreaker. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Sheikh, okay, thank you very much. So would like for everybody that has joined us now to share their name, where you're calling from, and an activity you do for self-care. Your name, where you're joining in from, and an activity you do for self-care. Like I mentioned earlier, my name is Ayomide Olude, and I am calling in from Lagos, Nigeria. I would say I have several activities I like to do for self-care, but one that trumps it all is sleep, because no matter what, no matter how tired I am, I'm still able to sleep. So sleep is, that activity for me, for self-care. Thank you, Ogene. Ogene says he's calling in from Port Harcourt, and his activity is playing football. Thank you. And Annie is calling in from Nigeria, and his self-care activity is listening to music. So you all just drop your name, where you're calling in from, and that activity that you do for self-care. Thank you, Mayowa. So Mayowa is calling in from Lagos, and his activities is reading and vacation. Okay. All right. Lekwa is calling in from Lagos, so he's joining us from Lagos, and the self-care activity is going on long walks. Yeah, I can relate to that. Yeah, and our speaker, Bongi, calling in from South Africa, and as self-care activities, hot bubble baths with candles and music on Sunday. Yeah, I can really get into that space. Thinking about that is, already giving me some self-care moves. Moses is joining from Ibadan, and his self-care activity is sleeping. And Shei's self-care, Shei is calling in from Lagos, and her activity is TikToks. Chimamanda is also calling from Lagos, and she listens to gospel music and praying as sleep. Thank you all for putting in this part of you, your self-care activities, and I hope we keep on, doing this, because in this world generally we are usually just busy and jumping onto the next task, and I think we really glorified that a lot. But taking that time to pause and reflect and do something just for you is very important. Okay, so we'll go straight into our speaker's introduction. So we'll have our first speaker introduce herself. Bongi, you have the floor.
Thank you and good afternoon to everyone. I'm very honored to be part of this important conversation today. I'm Bongiwe Dumezweni Ndakumba, a mental fitness coach based in South Africa. Since 2013, I've been coaching executives in different sectors of the economy here in South Africa, in Uganda, and in Tanzania. I help managers move from burnout to leading with ease. And what does that mean? That really means helping people to connect with their highest values so that they can lead from that authentic place of knowing who they are, what they are bringing into this world, and shut off the noise of expectations, societal expectations. And then move into saying, what are those things that sabotage you as a leader, sabotage you as a family person, sabotage you as a single person, and sabotage how you show up and be an effective leader in our societies. So, and I also love outdoors. And I incorporate hiking and outdoors in my leadership retreats because I think there is so much we can learn from the world around us if we just stop for a moment and smell the roses. So that's pretty much me. Thank you so much, Ayo.
Yeah, thank you very much. We'll have Dr. Toyin now go ahead and introduce herself.
Awesome greetings, everyone. I hope you are having an amazing afternoon. I'm Dr. Toyin Ajao, known as Moon Goddess in Healing Spaces. I'm a feminist activist, peace and conflict scholar, and a restorative healer. And I do restorative healing through iAfrica, Imole of Africa Restorative Healing Center. That is my organization. And the sole mission of my work with iAfrica is to transform transgenerational trauma and inter- and intrapersonal relationships among Africa, spreading Ubuntu culture across Africa so that we can reconnect with ourselves and use that healing within our soul to dismantle oppressive systems that is affecting all of us in different ways. And part of what is important with iAfrica's work is the empirical research and experiential praxis, practical tools that we use for healing work, including music and dance, including meditation, including expressive art and storytelling. That's that in a nutshell. And I hope that we have amazing time to talk and reflect with one another today. Nice meeting you all. Meeting you.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you so much for that, Dr. Toyin. So I'll just go straight into the first question. Bongi mentioned, our incorporating nature and outdoors into our retreats in our work. And usually, like I said during the introduction, for celebrating the environment, we mostly just go out and, do activities, cleanups, and things like that as a form of celebration. But we are also a part of nature, and celebrating ourselves, it's also an important part of, nature, natural processes. So my first question is, what are some, and I'm going to put this to Dr. Toyin first, what are some alternative lessons we can learn from nature to help combat burnout and stress?
Thank you so much for that. I think I've been reflecting on that, and I realized that the three important things that come to mind for me is to take a pause, stop, just take a pause and breathe. We don't do that a lot, and nature has shown us in so many ways that it's very important for us to take a pause and breathe, and to slow down within that space, and to be accountable. What does that mean in reality? It means, let's take, for example, we have an empirical analogy from COVID-19. When humans stopped throwing things in the ocean, polluting, being all out every time, what started happening? Nature was able to rest. Nature was able to recover. You see in many places, they're having reduced greenhouse emissions. They are quickly having more water, and they are quickly having improved air quality in many cities. So what that shows us is the importance of pausing, taking a break, and being responsible for ourselves and nature. So I think within these three key areas is where I'm realizing nature is giving us alternative information. Even let's look at the seasons that we have. Seasons just don't run through, they pause. It rains for a while, then it stops raining. We see that being cyclical, even though climate changing is changing the whole thing due to human activities. But nature shows us so many ways in so many areas that pausing, slowing down, and taking responsibilities are very crucial to rejuvenation.
Yeah, and that's very important. But before I share my reflections, I would like to throw the question also to Bongi. What are some alternative lessons we can learn from nature, to help combat burnout and stress?
Yes, thank you for that question. So in South Africa right now, we are in the middle of winter and trees are shedding dead leaves. This is renewal and it's predictable, as Dr. Ayo was just saying. It's seasonal, it's predictable. So for me, the lesson there is we need to be intentional about shedding habits that are not life-giving, habits that do not serve us, habits that really are not serving our interests. So one of those habits, if I can make an example, is busyness. Busyness has become a status symbol for many of us, and it's a bad habit which we need to shed. It's not serving us. The second one is balance. Ecosystems, natural ecosystems thrive on balance and harmony. So if we can find ways of, there's this elusive idea of work-life balance. People will never find a way of getting our heads around that, but we can look outside and look at nature and how it thrives on balance and harmony. The other one is nature yields. Nature does not resist the changes that happen. Today is hot, tomorrow it's snowy, the next day is windy, it's rainy. Nature adapts and just yields and bends and even thrives with difference. What do we do on the other hand? We resist difference. We complain, we blame, we make ourselves literally sick by not surrendering to the flow of life as it is. So we can learn to accept and embrace difference, accept and embrace the different seasons of life. That's what life is. So we become part of the flow of life instead of pushing against the flow of life. The last one I would like to reflect on is interconnectedness. So nature is about this intricate web of connections and interconnections between different organisms and ecosystems. What does that mean for us? We need to be very intentional about fostering meaningful connections, meaningful relationships that will provide us support and reduce unnecessary stress that we carry.
Yeah. Thank you both of you for your in-depth answer to those questions. And it also leads me to my second question. where, Bongi, you spoke about we focusing on business and taking it as a start to basically, and not surrendering to nature. And I would say, but let me just go ahead because I don't want to answer, and I want to hear your reflections on this. So I'm going to just ask you, how does our perception of rest influence our overall well-being and ability to address the climate crisis? Because in our world right now, like you said, we are on this fast pace, make money, capital, and we don't see other ways where we have value. And this has also been perpetrated by our society and the culture where we are from. And it might be very hard to see that this is not a way of life, especially for people who are not aware, environmentally aware, climate aware, or even aware of their environment. So how do these perceptions, affect our overall well-being and ability to address the climate crisis?
I think for me, if we perceive rest as a liability, a thing that we need to manage and deal with, or a thing that we need to introduce every once in a while, then we are in big trouble. Because then it's an afterthought. It is not something that we are intentional about. It is not something that we create and plan around it. And also the idea of rest, if it is our idea that when I go to a one-week holiday and I'm doing all the touristy things and shopping and going to all the attractions and come back tired and I feel I was on holiday, then we are in trouble. So that perception of rest is one that uses it almost like as a commodity, something that you need to incentivize yourself after so much months of hard work. But if we look at rest as a strategic gift that is part of who we are, that is part of what we do, then I do not necessarily need to wait for the weekend to rest. I do not necessarily need to wait for my holidays to rest. It becomes part of my work. It becomes an essential ingredient. What does that look like? It looks like creating times of reflection within my busy schedule. Taking time to step away from the detail of my work and say, but what is the bigger picture here? What is the purpose? So by doing that, also if we learn from nature, there are dormant seasons like winter. So that says to us, those moments of just slowing down and thinking about what needs to happen, thinking about what I'm doing and the significance thereof, that allows me time to just pause in the busyness of my day and just think about it. But what does it benefit me to do that? It means we start thinking about sustainable action, because what rest does, it helps us to be more mindful and intentional in making decisions that have big planetary impacts. And it also helps us to be resilient in the long term, because this is a long game. We are not just here for a short while. And activism on climate change is a long game. So what rest then does as a strategic resource that you have, it helps us as individuals and as a collective to be resilient, so that as we navigate this complex challenge of climate change, we can have sustained energy and sustained effort, which is what is really needed. But also it inspires creativity and innovation. When we are not stressed, when our minds are not scattered all over the place, we can calm our minds, they can wander, we can promote creativity and innovation. And this work demands a lot of innovations. We do not have answers to all the questions that we're having. The nature of this work is complex, and so it really needs innovative ideas to come to the fore. But here's another lesson from nature. If you take a walk and you see this expanse, these expanses of nature, that helps you to see the big picture. You move away from the narrow focus on your objectives, holding so tightly on them that you cannot tolerate an alternative view. And this results, we can see the results of this tightness and holding tight to our objectives and advocating and screaming and shouting and fighting for our objectives. What does it result in? In anger. Look around us. Many activists are so angry, and activism through anger burns us out. It burns us alive. And so we need to just breathe, take a view, a bigger view of the work that we do. And that is how we integrate rest in our work as an integral part of the work, not just a leave that you take once in a while.
Yeah, thank you very much for your response. Like that truly resonates with me. I like your phrase on, activism through anger burns us out. And, we really see it from that perspective. Yes, anger is a good driving force for action, but I just started, reading up on a concept called post-activism. And, how can we see activism in a different light? How can we accept that we are also, part of these systems and structures that enforce, this destruction on our planet? And how can we work towards it? So, yeah, I really liked that your thoughts on that. And I would like to throw it to Dr. Toyin to how do these perceptions of rest that we have, does it affect our overall well-being and, our ability to address the climate crisis?
Thank you. I have a story. There was a time, it's been a few years back, a brother from Kenya. I'm a globetrotter. So my time in Kenya, I met a brother through an event in Taiwan. And later in Kenya, we were talking, and I've entered this space of learning how to do activism differently, taking care of my health and well-being, because like Bongiwe said, the anger was consuming me. So I had a lot of anger issue as a result of all of these things not working in society. And my health was breaking down as a result, so I was the one getting trapped because my internal being is all, just feeling bad about everything. And so I checked myself in for cognitive behavior therapy in London. And after that, I was in Kenya and I've started, I think I was practicing veganism, I was doing yoga, I was going for Zumba, I was running. My mental health and emotional well-being was better. I take a lot of rest. I take myself away from things that don't serve me. I began choosing my battle and strategizing, like she said. Then I met this brother and I was talking to him about taking time to rest because he had a lot of things going on in his life. He refused. He said, no, I will feel guilty if I'm resting. People would think I'm lazy. I have to do it all. And I'm, like this toxic masculinity as well. I'm a man. I need to be there providing. So I told him, you got to take a rest. But I didn't just stop there. I kind of encouraged him to join a meditation program I once did to start my own journey. And he took that. So he joined the meditation. And later, I realized that not only has he become so calm, he traveled to Thailand to spend like 3 months in some temple to calm down more. Then after that, he came back and from a place of fullness and abundance, started writing books to make people plan for their lives and to make people do activism better. So I think it was up to a decade later when he wrote to me and said, all of this started from when you introduced me to that meditation program. I had even forgotten totally about it. But at the end of the day, he went through how to learn slowing down and resting and cultivating that as a lifestyle. But that's not in our culture. People will shame you, blame you, tell you you are lazy, and you want to justify to people too that you are not lazy. And we had this culture of competition. You need to be out there, be a go-getter, see what's happening on social media as well. So all of these will deplete who you are. And with activism, if you don't bring yourself into a space of healing, which is part of what I'm working on to see how to let people know what healing activism looks like. So that you are not only healing you are not only fighting for an issue, but you are healing yourself, healing society. Because from that place of calmness, of balance, you will be able to see the contradictions in the system that is not serving you. I call that critical consciousness. You will be able to see how you yourself might be facilitating some of these things that are not, serving the environment, serving who you are, serving the people, and reducing the connectiveness of all lives and ourselves. So I think it's really very important that we pay attention to some of that and not do this thing of us and others. We're all part of this ecosystem together. And if it doesn't work, it doesn't work for all of us. And I have an example for that, and I'll stop after this example. So my house, I'm in this flat, estate is a prototype. So everybody has the same kind of bungalow looking housing. And I surrounded my place with plants. I have plants everywhere. And part of what I did when I was having emotional challenges was to start planting. I was using that to slow down, to rest. And my house now, in the old estate is the only one with plants everywhere. And some of my neighbors will pass and say, if only I can do this, if only I can, But the thing is, I know the oxygen in my area is a bit better, but the pollution from the industrial waste in my area, we pollute the environment more. But imagine if everybody within that estate begins to do this and begins to say, let's take action to reach out to government, to reach out to these places from a place of balance. The result we are going to achieve will benefit us, the environment at large. So these are the kind of things I'm calling us to really critically think about. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you very much for your answer, Dr. Tony. You really touched on a lot of concepts, even post-activism and how we see ourselves in relation to nature. My next question, I would just like you to continue on that because you started speaking on it, is you mentioned, when you were speaking about your friend and you mentioned masculinity and, different perceptions that we all have of ourselves. Yes. And, how we impact how we see rest, basically. So that's my next question. What factors shape, our prevailing thoughts and attitudes towards rest? And how can we challenge and, reshape these perceptions?
Yeah, thank you so much. With that, I think three things come to mind for me. Part of factors that shape this kind of, dysfunctional, unhealthy perception is our educational system. We don't have educational system that build, sustainable plans for the ecosystem, for biodiversity, for rest. That has to be checked. I recall some schools now, not in Nigeria, have started cultivating this rest time in their curriculum for children to meditate for a bit, to slow down, to, play, to go hiking. All of that are very crucial for the kind of things that we can achieve when our educational system looks at why and how it's not working and how it's causing more damage into the way we see ourselves, especially this perception of competition. You have to be the best, you have, all of that. And I'm not saying people shouldn't strive for excellence, but they want to make us perfectionists. And by the time you are doing all of that, you're not paying attention to how your perfectionism is affecting you and affecting the environment. The second one for me is religion. The kind of, and I'm not talking of spirituality here. And when I talk of religion, I will talk about when Christianity came to Africa. If any of you have seen or read Wangari Maathai's book, The Challenge for Africa, where she was calling us back to our ancient practices and how we respect nature, how we just don't go into the rainforest and destroy things and take resources for the sake of it. But when colonialism came and Christianity came, we started seeing all of this as God-given thing that can be replaced by itself. I was talking to a friend one time in the UK about overfishing. And this guy was like, no, God provides fish. It can never finish in the ocean. Tony, stop that nonsense. Now, if you don't have a spirituality or culture that says respect nature, but say take from nature and it's your giving right, it is problematic. And the other one is capitalism. This culture of we must make money, we must multiply, we must keep going, we must consume, we must have. It depletes us, it depletes nature. So all of that in essence is leading to a lot of depletion where the greenhouse emissions is just kaboom. I don't know if any of you have seen, there's a documentary, Breaking Boundaries, the Science of Our Planet. It was about the tipping points, where like we are reaching the tipping point in the climate system. And this tipping point, they were trying to tell us certain ways it had manifested. Then they showed the coral reefs and some oceans, the rainforest of oceans, they are bleaching, they are dying out. And what that means for climate change is all of us will be in trouble, essentially. And I look at that, I'm like, how did it get to this stage? And it's the same thing with our waste management, isn't it? Many of us in Nigeria, do we know how bad our waste management is? Because it's the same culture of educational system to capitalism to this religion model that is not supporting nature in the way we think about it. And the last one on that level is how sick our soil has become as a result of all of these activities, from deforestation, from overfishing, from pollution. So all of these things that are happening are showing us that on the largest scale, if you connect the dots, we do not have that culture of restoration, even for nature. And it's ingrained in the system that taught us how to be and how to behave. So it has to go back to what do we do about systems change? Because we need to address that as well in the way that we're addressing our own attitude towards it. Because I can be planting trees, I can be planting, I can be getting potted plants in my house. If I don't have the same reach like Wangari Maathai, where the whole Kenya was reforesting, it will take longer time for us to reach where we need to reach. So these systems, we really have to interrogate them and pay attention to the damages inherent in them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, thank you very much for your awesome answer. Bongi, back to you. What factors?
Yes. Yeah. I just want to build on what Dr. Ines just said and just reflect on what cultural norms we embrace. And when I'm talking about culture, I'm not talking about a specific ethnic group culture. I'm talking about our global culture, which really emphasizes productivity, business, and this workaholic mentality. And we need to question that belief that says productivity and success means accumulating and having more and having more. And recognize that rest and well-being and slowing down, in fact, gives us sustainability in the long run. So we've got to start questioning this idea that workaholic tendencies and accumulation of wealth and accumulation of things that we do not need is a sign of success. The second one, when it comes to organizations, is wealth cultures. Organizational cultures that demand long hours, overwork of their staff, and unrealistic expectations in the name of pursuing a goal, pursuing noble ideas. That is so wrong. So we need to humanize the workplace. We really need to humanize with the workplace and bring values to the workplace, such as I value my workforce, and create psychologically safe workplaces. The other one is our personal beliefs and mindsets. We often confuse business with significance and we define ourselves or attaching our identity to the work that we do, and that is not helpful. And which is why we would exhaust and burn ourselves out. We would not take leave because we want to be seen to be productive. We want to be seen to be effective and successful in our work. Our work is separate to a great extent, depending on the type of work you do, from who you are as a person, your essence as an individual. So we need to discover and align our highest values and lead lives that we have a reason to believe. So for me, the idea of what is it that I do and to what extent am I aligned? So for instance, I may say I care for the environment and I sit in these meetings, but then I walk out. Do I check my behaviors? Are my behaviors aligned to what I'm saying? To what extent am I buying things that I don't really need? To what extent am I polluting the environment? Am I recycling? So those are the kinds of questions of to what extent am I aligned to my values? And the idea is we need to change our personal beliefs and mindsets. And it starts with us. Dr. Ayn was talking about having all these plants around her house. And for me, if I'm able to do that, I'm able to then influence the next person and influence the next person. And ultimately, as a collective, we influence the world. The last thing I want to reflect on is media and the messaging that is going on. The messaging in the media is that one that promotes business. It promotes an idea of success, which is about accumulation. It's warped notions of success. So as activists in this space, I believe that our duty is to promote a more holistic and balanced view of success. That includes well-being, self-care, and meaningful connections, but above all, mindfulness. For me, mindfulness is the answer to all evil because it helps us to come back to the present moment and check, but what are my aversions? What are my attachments? And to what extent am I living an authentic life that serves me, serves those around me, and serves the bigger environment, which I am a part of? I am not separate to it. I am a part of it. And so how do I take care of that which serves me? Because the environment actually serves me. And so how do I take care of it as if it was an integral part of me, which it is? So for me, that's how I would look at it. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, very much for your answer. And it also leads me to my next question. And I just like the way everything is flowing, between each question and answer, because it feels like we are connected and we are mindful of this situation. And I'll just like you to go further, Bongi, because you spoke about, mindfulness and, acknowledging that we are a part of nature and rest is a part of us. So I want to ask, how can we incorporate, rest as an integral part of activism and efforts towards addressing climate change? I know you already spoke on how we can do that in the workplace and how we can do that, individually. But what other opinions do you have on integrating rest as a part of activism and efforts, in this as a climate activist?
Yes, for me, at the center of it is we need to engage in nature-based activities. Connect with nature as a source of inspiration, as a source of rest, as a source of solace and restoration. When you take that walk in the forest, you breathe cleaner air, you calm down, you connect, you appreciate the beauty that's all around you. And you might say, well, I live in the city, there's no forest around me, and there's all concrete and buildings and whatever. Just get outside. Just get outside. Take a break. Walk around the block. I used to do that when I worked in Pretoria, our capital city. I worked in the city, so there's no park close by. But I would take a break during my lunch break and just walk around the block and come back. When you come back, you think better, you think differently. The second is we need to practice what I call mindful activism. What does this look like? When we are mindful in our activism, our being here and now, because that's what mindfulness is about, just being here and now, that presencing helps by taking away the burden of ruminating about what didn't go well yesterday, all the things that we are fighting for that are not happening, all the policies that the governments are not implementing, and we keep ruminating about that and churning our negative energies as we do that, or worrying about what could happen tomorrow. Oh, if we don't take care of the environment, tomorrow will look like this, and we start worrying about that. Hey, come back to the now. This is really a present. So mindfulness or mindful activism is a present we can actually give ourselves as activists. And this present is wrapped in grace, in acceptance, in patience, and in compassion. So we can give ourselves that gift. The other one that I want to reflect on is rest being a strategic response or resource for strategic thinking and leadership. So part of what keeps us busy and putting out fires and firefighting and running around is that we have flaws in our leadership. We are bogged down in details of implementation instead of delegating and empowering others. So really what rest is, it is a strategic resource for us to lead better, for us to trust our subordinates, empower them, delegate, give them more work so that they can thrive, bring their signature strengths to work. That for me serves everybody. It serves me as a leader, but it serves everybody else because then we use rest, as I said earlier on, not as a liability, but we use rest as a strategic resource, which is integral in our leadership.
Very wise words, very, very wise words. I'm going to show this to Dr. Toyin to just get our opinion on this. How can we incorporate rest, as an integral part of our activism?
Yeah, thank you so much. I'm just going to build on one Bongiwe as spoken about to say, what I'm adding to is to say, we will be able to incorporate rest as integral part of activism and effort towards addressing climate crisis if we cultivate what I call healing justice and healing justice and critical consciousness using Ubuntu framework as a lifestyle. And I'll break that down. They look like, big words, but I love the values of these three things I've just said. In this sense, when we look at healing justice and we bring that into what we do, it means we have the opportunity to holistically respond to and intervene in intergenerational trauma and violence that is affecting us, that all these oppressive systems have caused our bodies, minds, and soul to suffer. And we will be able to bring collective practices that can impact and transform that. And those collective practices are part of what Bongiwe has spoken to already. We need to make sure we do that consciously, mindfully, and intentionally. And when I talk about critical consciousness, why this is important is, as activists, like I said before, sometimes is us versus them. We don't see that interconnectedness of the issues of how everything is in that culture affecting us, affecting others, or we're part of the product of that culture as well. So critical consciousness let us focus on achieving an in-depth understanding of the word, because we need to have in-depth understanding of the word as activists. And this allows for the perception and exposure of social and political contradictions to come to light for us, so we can take strategic actions against those oppressive elements in our lives that this understanding has illuminated. And we could see, as we are talking today, part of the oppressive element is productivity, toxicity in the workspace, and we've talked about, capitalism, and all of these are those things that we need to make sure that we shine light on. And to be able to achieve this, I'll quickly round up by saying Ubuntu framework helps us. Many of us don't really get what Ubuntu framework is because of perhaps the word that we are not used to is Ubuntu is a South African word, but Ubuntu practice cuts across Africa. It's all about interconnectedness that Bongiwe spoke to earlier on. I am because you are. We are all connected. And in that sense, our Ubuntu framework will work for us is by intentionally and mindfully restoring ourselves and the ecosystem by cultivating restful and rejuvenating practices through collective care and self-care practices. They are in tandem. Self-care, collective care. They are both very re-emphasizing what Bongiwe already said. And I need to add that we need to cultivate joy. We need to slow down to breathe, to feel, to dance, to reflect, to feel joy, and to sleep. And, we don't, even I'm guilty of that, being online, not unplugging, just being there, social media, consuming. But you have to be intentional about putting all of that down so that you can better re-strategize. And lastly, what I want to add is that we need to be mindful and accountable to each other, to oneself and nature. That's that responsibility I was talking about earlier when we started. As activists, we need to strategically think through how to offset these carbon emissions if you are working on climate change, by making sure that the solutions that we are bringing is inclusive, is strategic, is connected, and is compassionate. And it understands all of these challenges that we're facing together. So that's what I'm going to say, and to leave us with asking ourselves that as a result of what I've said, what is your well-being ritual that you will use going forward to nurture yourself into knowing who you are, balancing yourself so you can be best address the issue that you are passionate about. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that thoughtful, question. What is my well-being ritual? I'm going to take a few seconds to think about that and get back on that. If anybody also wants to answer, you can drop that in the chat. We are now in the question and answer session. So if anybody would like to ask our speakers any further question, or if you just want to reflect, on what you've learned today and its impact on you, the floor is open. You can either drop it in the chat or raise your hand to speak. So I have a question or sort of reflection, and I'm just going to come out with it. So for people, we talk about mindfulness, we talked about taking a break, we talked about breathing and connecting to nature. But in a society like from where I'm from, where people are still, in survival mode, some people don't even know all these things, most people are not even conscious, or they've not got into that self-consciousness yet, and they are just trying to survive, to eat and get all these things. What advice would we have for them on rest? Because these people are still trapped in the rat race. They are unemployed, they need money. I remember there was a time we went for a cleanup, and we're telling people, oh, why should you clean up your environment? This is why cleaning up your environment is good. And this person was like, what's my business with that? Why should I be concerned about where I throw my trash? They were just thinking short term. And like you said, education is part of it. What have people been taught? What is in our society? So what advice would you have for this particular person, somebody who is not yet open to the thought of rest or reflection? I don't know if any one of you wants to answer to that.
I can take a bite. I actually think that the people who have a serious problem is us, the middle class, more than any other group of people. So the people who are concerned about survival, they do not have these kinds of rest problems and issues that we have, stress related to rest. They have other stressors. Whether do I have food on my table tonight? Are my kids going to go to school tomorrow? They have those kinds of stressors. The middle class, however, is one group of people who are in big, big trouble because the cost of success is disintegrating our health. It is disintegrating our families. We are the ones who work 24 hours, literally. You go to work, you put in 12 hours, you come home with your laptop and you put your laptop on your lap and you work through the night, ignoring your family, ignoring your spouse, ignoring your children. It's us who have this serious problem. That would be my part of the reflection. And so, which is why we need to have a lot of these kinds of conversations to help people reframe success, help people understand what does it mean to be a successful person. Does success mean I need to sacrifice my health? I need to sacrifice my relationships. I need to climb this ladder. When I get there, I'm divorced. When I get there, my kids do not even know me. They hate me. Do I call that success? That's not success. So we need to understand that this lie that we have been sold of success, it's a lie, and we need to call it out for it being a lie and regroup and get ourselves back. So that for me would be my answer to that important question you've raised.
Yeah, thank you very much. Dr. Toyin, would you like to answer that?
I think I just want to contribute to what she said. And it's in that sense of your body has the wisdom to know when you need to rest. And when you don't listen to it, your body will show you pepper. Let me say that in the way we put it in Nigeria. And by the time your body starts now showing you pepper and you are still not listening, then you start the Western model of healing by taking medication. Then side effects happens, and again it's all, on and on. Sometimes a code will tell you just to rest, but you push, and I get it, survivor. But when you look at the mentality of surviving as well, it is inherent in that fear that we have, that when tomorrow comes, we are going to lack. When, what must we do? And that fear goes with this lack of planning as well, which is back to what society is not doing to us or giving us, to say, you know what? If I'm able to have good food today and I breathe clean air, why am I stressing about other things? Your body has the wisdom to tell you when things are not right. So listen to it. That's what I'm going to add to that. Yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for your words of wisdom, Bongi and Dr. Toyi. We have Hope here. Hope has a question, and we also have a question in the chat. So Hope, can you go ahead and share your thoughts or reflections?
Yeah, thank you very much, Annie.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, my question is as regards to climate activism and how, how people like myself and Annie and other folks here, how we kind of like engage with our work. And a lot of it has been said on self-reflection and resting, but how do you deal with, I think it's pretty much tied to Hannah's question in the chat. Like, how do you deal with the need to rest, also trying to balance that with the guilt of you not working to your level that you expect yourself to work to, and seeing that, and in the work of climate, and seeing that how everything is going left all the time, and nobody's listening to anybody. How do you deal with that? It's already lopsided, as you can see, it's 2-to-1. You need to rest, but then you also have to deal with the guilt of you putting your A effort, and also the reality of everything going left. How do you try to rationalize rest, really?
And I think that's the problem, rationalizing.
Yeah.
You know, because it's already there. You are there trying to solve issues. Nobody is either listening or you're struggling. It means you need to stop yourself. Like I said in the beginning, pause, breathe, just slow down. Because if you are rationalizing, how are you not stressing yourself? It means you are doing rest as a mental activity, as opposed to the body need that will restore you. So I think that's what we need to first know. And I've been telling people this. I love using Nigeria as example. So I'm going to be 45 next month. Since I've been born, there have been no stable electricity in Nigeria. But before I was 10 years old, they told us electricity would be stable. That's 35 years ago. There's still no electricity. As I'm talking to you now, I'm using my generator because I needed the Wi-Fi. Mobile network will not be stable. But I'm rationalizing as well because fuel is expensive now. As soon as we finish this, I'm putting off my gen because it's on need by need basis. So life is teaching me adaptation, like Bongiwe said before. So within this space is for us to see what is happening versus what we are doing. So when you need to stop, stop. So that you can do that thing that Bongiwe said again, go and re-strategize. Because since electricity has not been in Nigeria, did I die? Have I died though? I am still here adapting. I'm still here living. I'm still here sorting out how to cope with or navigate this situation in that sense, because I don't cope, I navigate. I've moved from survival mode to thriving. Thriving is part of what nature tells us, and we need to dance with nature to do that together. So with the question in the chat room, Anna, the guilt, first and foremost, hug to anybody who is feeling guilty. I hug myself sometimes as well because I feel guilty when I have projects and I'm like, this week I'm sleeping, I'm resting, I'm doing nothing. Then the rationalization that Hope talked about kicks in. Oh shit, you are not productive. You are doing nothing. Oh, your own don't finish. Then I don't listen. I just hug myself and say, calm down, you've got this, you've planned. Then when I now get ready to do that work, I do it optimally. I do it optimally and I do my work well. So tell your brain, it starts from the mind to internalize rest as important to your well-being. Begin from that language, change that language. Because when that language is changed, you are going to be stepping into seeing the importance of resting more and more. I think Bongiwe can speak more to that. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes, I mean, building on that, Dr. Atoyin, here's the thing. Rest is not just a personal thing that you give yourself and pamper yourself with. Rest is a bottom line imperative for business. It is a bottom line imperative. Let's take guilt out of it. When you are rested, you think better. You show up better with your colleagues. It is imperative for strategic implementation or strategy implementation. So organizations need to change their cultures and understand that being humane in the workplace is a bottom line issue. It is about business. It is about money. It is about effectiveness in business. Yeah. So rest is a strategic resource for business. And here's what I want to also suggest. We need to disrupt ourselves. The word disruption is everywhere, right? And we need to use it here in this context. What does that look like? In the crazy busy day that you're having, disrupt yourself and breathe. Breathe. Can I suggest a quick breathing exercise? You can do this in the middle of a meeting in a boardroom where everybody is there. You don't need to close your eyes. This is where you breathe in and you count in your head 4 times, 2, 3, 4. You take it in and you hold it 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and you exhale slowly 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Can we do it together?
Yes.
Out. Next breath. Exhale. Right. Disrupt yourself, disrupt the madness of your day by just breathing in the middle of a chaotic boardroom meeting. You just collect and come back to the present. The other one we do in my coaching is what we call PQ reps. You know, when we go to the gym and we do reps to build our physical muscles, we do PQ reps to build our mental muscles. I'm going to give you a gift of just one of those. Quick one. You can close your eyes if you're in a place that you can do that, but also in a meeting, whilst everyone is going crazy around you, you center yourself. Now, this is what you do. Rub 2 fingertips against each other with such attention that you can feel the fingertip ridges. Rub 2 fingertips with such attention that you can feel the fingertip ridges. Back to you, Ayo.
Yeah. Thank you very much, you both for that session. I wish we could keep going on and on, to be honest, but we are past our time. And I want to thank you both again for joining in. I really appreciate, learning and the wisdom we've gotten from you today. I can see Anna says she doesn't understand something in the chat. If it's the exercise, it is just you rubbing your fingers like this until you can feel, your ridges, like the fingerprints, or this way. So just, bring your attention to the present. And that is very helpful. I'm stealing that. Thank you very much for the gift, Bongi. I want to appreciate everyone for joining in today. Thank you for taking your time to be part of this webinar. I also want to thank Bongi and Dr. Toyin for sharing their wisdom. This is a webinar I'll definitely keep going back to listen to, because I have learned a lot, especially on radicalizing my thinking. No matter what the society says, I should put myself first when it comes to rest. And I'm going to, do that and take that into consideration. So we are past time now. Shay stopped sharing the screen, but I had a quote on rest. I had a quote on rest on the presentation slides. But we'll definitely share you the slides and the quotes and the recordings after this session. I want to thank everyone again for joining in. Yeah, thank you, Dr. Toyin. Self or gift notes.
Thank you.
I just want everybody to quickly cross their shoulders, cross their arms across their shoulders, rock yourself back and forth. This is self-hug. Remind yourself to be kind to yourself, to be loving, and blow yourself kisses. And do that even after we've left here. It's important. Yeah.
Thank you all. Goodbye. Please follow us on social media at TEAP Africa, and also Saucy Vibes, our mother organization at Saucy Vibes. We'll be having recaps of this webinar, and we'll definitely share the recording and the slides and quotes with all of you. Thank you very much. Goodbye. Have an awesome day ahead.
Hugs. Bye. Enjoy the rest of the day. Bye.
Hugs to you.
Bye.
Bye.